Welcome to Lat B, the only podcast that comes with a free Bandits bonus.
Express delivery included.
Lat B, where MMA and UFC get silly. This is the Lat B podcast.
Welcome back. We're here the morning after ESPN 3 card, all on big ESPN, and what a showing did we have. A lot of favorites come through. If you're following the show, a humongous underdog coming through, one of the only underdogs to really come through throughout the night. But man, what can I say here at Lat B? We're consistently making money for people, but there is going to be changes. We have been evolving, and we're going to keep on trucking, have new stuff come out, and evolving, like always. How did your night go last night, Cheney? Did you end up cashing on DraftKings? Did you place those bets? Did you make that sweet, sweet money?
I didn't have a bad bet pick. I think I did 8 of 12. So I didn't do bad, but Anthony Rocco Martin really hurt my night. Even though he survived the entire fight, he couldn't get off anything. 17 points or something.
17.5, I believe, on DraftKings.
In a lot of places.
I would agree. That was also an underdog. I was heavy on it being the Bandits bonus. So, essentially, that's our Drake curse, I feel like, right now.
Yes.
It's the equivalent. We put that bonus on there, and it's like, bye-bye, you get spiked on your head. You get all the sorts of, not weird stuff, because, again, it was a valiant effort.
Should we keep doing it, but only our real fans know to stay away from that? And like to go the opposite, like it's a hidden...
I can't do that to my boy. I think it needs to go into the sweet, sweet night and just, like the purple rain, mist off and be remembered well. So... unfortunately, that didn't come through, but we had a fun show, and I know you still did fairly well with about 8 of 12. Here, if you're following Emmanuel, you went 10 of 12, only missing 2, and woo, making some cash, making big plays. Again, anything in the Twitterverse we want to get into before we start this entire card off? Because it's fresh. It's in the morning. I got the blood going. Woo, we
honestly,
ready.
I don't know anything crazy that's gone down on Twitter. So I think we can jump right into it.
To the heavyweights, where we had Mr. Maurice Green come in against Junior Baby Albini, and that diaper was full. It had all sorts of poop coming out the sides. Albini getting dropped 3 times in a fight, and then getting finished. Mr. Green being the highest scorer on the entire card. So we usually stay away from these guys, but it's a heavyweight fight. So as we recommended, you kind of got to play this. And Mr. Green showed out. I didn't have any Albini. He really ended up helping me cash out throughout the night. Mr. Green being on that number 1 card for most people.
I had no beanie, and I'm glad that I switched. I think I switched on air. I'm unsure, but I'm glad you convinced me of it, because no beanie, and now it's 3 losses in a row?
4.
Is it time, or do we just keep putting them up there for these contender series guys?
It's a heavyweight. That's the only hesitation.
And he stands up at least after a first knockdown,
So
second knockdown.
Someone else can get another highlight reel. But, I mean, as far as, we can't trust the UFC. We just learned that again.
Yeah, we just were talking about it. No wins, losses matter.
Yeah, especially at heavyweight of all divisions.
Did Mr. Green call out Andrei Arlovsky?
He did, because he ended up beating Albini as well, but that's one of the lowest. That's on Diego Sanchez level type of a call out.
He actually said it, though. To start getting my name mentioned, I have to beat a veteran.
Correct.
So, man, at least he's mentioning it.
Good call out. But Mr. Green, looking better than he ever has in there. We were talking about that discipline, and he really looked and started to use that length at range. Albini being a striker, Mr. Green kept that jab in his face, pumping that right, and then throwing up kicks, leg kicks as well. That was the best Mr. Green I ever seen.
Yeah, he looked good in there, but then it was against no beanie.
True. So, do we officially...
Can you ever bet on no beanie again?
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can at all.
Yeah, so it's finally time to get on out of here, Mr. Baby.
Green did look good everywhere in there. I didn't like that he was taking one to give one at parts of the fight. That could get dangerous with some other guys. But Albini does have good power, so I am excited that Mr. Green's chin held up in that. So all around, step up for Maurice Green. He beat of name.
Right. How did you love the call out and his wife and kids being in the crowd?
After the call out, I zoned out. I might have walked to the kitchen or something. Good wife and kids in the crowd.
Definitely a fun one. Then we ended up moving on to 115 pounds, where we had Amanda debut in Rebus come in against Emily Spitfire Whitmire. Whitmire being a heavy favorite, plus 180, minus 185, almost a 2-1 favorite by closing lines. We were telling you guys, be tentative on this one. It's going to probably go to decision. If there's a finish, it's going to be Whitmire. After we record the podcast, I listen to other people's. And I was convinced by a few other bettors out there that Whitmire was really going to steam through. So I ended up putting her on one card. And she totally shit in the bed on that one. So thanks a lot, pro bettors out there. Changing my mind.
I stayed away from this. Rebus looked good everywhere, but I don't know what to think of Whitmire. I just stayed away from this fight altogether, so it didn't harm me or help me.
So I did not know prior to recording last time that it was actually an Osterine pop for Rebus, and Rebus was in there getting it. I'm just saying, she popped for what?
She looked good.
Hell,
I mean,
yeah.
her submission game was on point. But
even her striking, she's been at American Top Team though for those 3 years now. Like when she had to take that suspension. It was due to popping because she was signed a while ago. But either way, liked what I saw. Somebody who moves that forward and is confident is going to get a lot of women out of there just in tenacity, just in total overwhelming them. So where do we go with Whitmire and Rebus here?
They're at 125?
115 pounds.
15. I don't know. Rebus versus Calvillo next. Let's do it.
Wow, that's a huge. I think that's too much.
Calvillo on a double loss?
I think you're right on that. So yeah, that wouldn't be bad at all. Yeah, I like that call out. And as far as for Whitmire, anybody, because she was just coming off of a little win streak, I believe, 2 in a row.
And Rebus and Calvillo both off suspensions.
Ooh, but Calvillo's weed. It's not weed. That ain't a drug. So, on to 205 pounds, we had a double debut. It was dirty. It was grimy. We told you guys it was going to be that way. We had Dalcha Lagiambula come in against Dequan Townsend. Townsend ended up coming in and looking just again out of shape to me, a little bit slow in there. This ended up going all the way into the third round, but Judoka really ended up dominating all of the rounds until the finish. Was it a little early? It wasn't. Townsend or Dequan here wasn't completely out in there, but at the same time, he wasn't really mounting any kind of concerted effort. I think that the size of that champion in there is going to really make him a betting favorite moving forward, and you're going to have to pump the brakes on him soon because a much higher competition UFC caliber type of a fighter is going to be able to exploit this young man. So I'm still not super hyped on him just because, again, it's another debut fighter, which I didn't think was UFC caliber. What'd you end up taking away from this one?
I agree with everything you're saying. Also, this starts off what we were saying about the UFC Africa.
In the rains of Africa, that's song again and you will ever fit into.
Oh.
That was a good one, right? That was a good one.
Yeah, people who know what you're talking about.
So, we going to Africa is what the main story of that is. And, I mean, everything. Did you even see the graphic on UFC showing, look at how many African fighters we have in the UFC right now? And it was like 8 to 9 fighters that were all representing Niger, the Republic of Congo. Who else in there? A couple other
South
stats.
Africa.
There it is.
Where is Cameroon?
Exactly.
Where is it's don't make
There's
me
enough. There's enough in there in Sidik Youssef, Francis Ngannou, and so many others. So money is going to be in on Africa versus the world, and they have a steadfast guys that they're like, ooh, look at all these divisions. This is a card they're all fighting within like a 2-month span of each other. Let's get this going. When do you think it happens, though? The end of 2019, or is it a 220 type of prediction?
I think it would be a 220 type of prediction, and it would be something that they do like a 5-month buildup on, not just pulled out of their ass. Like a real buildup. I think they are really picky with the fighters they put on it. Maybe that's where even a headliner of that card or a co-main event is a winner of Khabib versus Dustin versus Tony Ferguson or versus GSP or whatever direction they go with that. Like it could have other things filled into it along with some of these African fighters, but I just think it sets up a good base. We can dream. I can even hear the music. Like I can hear
Usman's the headliner. He's a headliner because he's a champ, but you got Ngannou as a co-main event there. Woo! That's some hot fire.
So good.
Such a good booking schedule. If you listen to IB, you're getting free advice, UFC. We know you listening. We know you listening. I see those producers like in my Twitterverse stuff. So, anything left with either one of these guys?
No, but I agree. I'm interested in Dequan a little bit. He took a lot of abuse from and power, so I'm interested in a full training. He was on like a 4-day notice or something.
Yes, he was.
And probably he'll fight at a lot lower weight class. So we'll see. I'm not counting him out altogether. And we forgot to mention about the Griffin Murdoch falling out.
Oh, that is correct. We ended up having, and this actually with the Daliach champion here, he ended up not being on the DraftKings, which was 8,700. Eventually, he was the favorite against Townshed in there. So it's just the way it played out. Then we ended up having a fight fall out. I was telling you we had a bit of a hothead in Murdoch. Was telling you that he's alpha male prototype, but I'm just throwing shade. It was actually a medical suspension, not suspension. He didn't pass a physical for the UFC, so they were doing the basic week of stuff, and he didn't disclose what it was. I don't know if it was a hernia, he had a nagging knee or ankle injury. It was officially, though, called off, so we didn't get to profile that fight. And I was thinking we were going to get a big win in there, because Murdoch seemed like
that was kind of where I first started to have to trade my cards around, and he was a good price for what I thought was going to be a good amount of points, so that was a bummer to lose him.
To lose Griffin in that fight,
yeah.
100% agreed. I was definitely having to change my cards when that fell out, unfortunately. So, on to a profile showcase fight for Jared Gordon at 155 pounds against Dan Moret. This was actually a hairy one. Dan Moret, in the first round, ended up showing where Gordon kind of tends to wade in a little bit, and when you pressure forward, you can land punches, and that's a bit of a flaw for Gordon. The will is there, the heart's there, but he needs to bring some technical movement in that head at times, because he was just getting served up some uppercuts and right hands at times, where Dan Moret was looking really good. Again, that first round definitely went to Moret, but Gordon ended up turning it up, going into the deep water, using his wrestling, finally getting it to the ground where Moret obviously had a disadvantage, and peppered him into a 98 type of score for Gordon. I don't think it was that big of a win. I don't think it's that big of a loss for Moret. I could see both of these guys moving okay forward, but at 155, it ain't a slim pickings. You can throw any name out there and you're gonna get it. They're deep in that division. Jared Gordon getting back on track.
I had Gordon on 2 cards, and he wasn't an awful scorer, but for the price, it was kind of and very scary dude. Very scary win for him, I should say. It was, for people that went heavy in the paint on him, I thought, oh, this would threaten a night. And there was a few times in there against a guy like Dan Moret that I thought he was in a ton of trouble. So, yeah, I don't know where either guy goes too far forward. I think Dan Moret, it looked like his skill set was a little stunted with going up against everything that Gordon had. And then Gordon just looked chinny and put himself in very dangerous. He can't afford to give one to get in the inside, and he did every time. There were sketchy takedowns. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm kind of going to stay away from both guys going forward.
I actually like Moret in other spots because he was grindy enough and grimy enough that I think that he can
against some hot newbies coming up.
Yeah, where really Gordon is going to keep being a favorite, and it's like, nah, he's going to keep fighting better competition. And again, there's a direct path, and it's landing on that chin, and he gives people the option. Again, power strikers are definitely going to be his weakness as he goes on further. Talking about power strikers at 205 pounds, we had Eric, your boy Anders, coming in against Vinicius Moreira Mutate. Ended up getting a TKO round number 1. We said it on our breakdown. This was going to go one of two ways. Submission round number 2 or 3 for Vinicius in there, or TKO round 1 Anders. But that was it. This fight wasn't going the distance. If you put a prop on that play, you ended up cashing because this went all of 1 minute and 18 seconds. I mean, Aaron Anders just showing that he has better boxing than a guy who probably isn't UFC caliber in there, and it's been proven time and time again. Maria has very limited striking and defense at that, and in this division at 205 pounds, everybody got power, so you just can't afford to not be able to get it to the ground. We saw a bit of takedown defense, and then all of a sudden, again, once Maria's was forced to strike with him, it was all downhill. What'd you take away from your boy's performance in here?
It wasn't a bad sprawl by Anders. I think his takedown defense is getting even better, and if his striking's going to be getting more crisp. We know he already has the power, and the cardio is going to be getting better. I might have been a little too harsh on him. I'm glad you kind of convinced me to stay with him because he was a strong guy on a lot of my cards and really showed out. I like everything I saw from Eric Anders. I think he'll fight again real soon. The UFC knows that. It was kind of a gimme fight, so I think he'll fight within 6 weeks. Eric Anders will be on another card.
Wow.
I think he's that kind of fighter. I think
he took 0 damage in this fight.
I think he's gonna fight in like 6 weeks. He'll fill in short notice on some card.
Yep.
And
was he talking about Nevada as well in his post show?
San Antonio. Maybe.
There it is, San Antonio. I believe you're right on that. So that is a short turnaround. That's about 8 weeks away, somewhere in that range. So. Yeah, he's ready again.
And he's making quick rank crawl, or not quick rank crawlings as much as quick fan building. Mm-hmm. I think he's doing a good job. Your boy
definitely ended up being, I believe, 9,400 in there. So I had some exposure to him. He played out none to Vinicius in here. Do you think Vinicius gets one more shot? It's been 2 KOs in a row. Do they just throw him into somebody else to get a win and then it's on out of here for him? Or is it time to go?
It depends on if he probably has another fight left on his contract, and if he takes the right fight, it'll be up on him if he takes it or not, and then they'll just cut him up. They fill him with other contender guys. That's the danger too of all these contender guys coming up through the rank is. All of a sudden, if you're game enough to just go in there and swing for the fences, you could get a guy like this and build a name off of him first fight of the night. Started out hot. Exactly.
So 205 pounds, he might get another shot in there, but probably going to be a bet against him, no matter who it is.
You'll have to remind me again, and maybe, probably not. We'll be like, KO'd by Anders, done, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. The kiss of death. So at bantamweight, 135 pounds, we had Ricardo Ramos, or Ricardo Ramos, coming in defeating the debuting Journey Newsom coming out of Portland, Oregon. It was a 3-round decision in there. Ramos really showing his gas tank was getting better in there against a wrestler in Newsom. Couldn't really get his wrestling going and was starting to get picked apart pretty much from the beginning to the end. In that 3rd round, we had a close almost finish with Ramos throwing that spinning elbow landing on Newsom. But Newsom literally dropped to a knee and got back up and stayed in the fight. So it was a -300 favorite for a reason. I didn't have too much exposure to Ramos, honestly, on my DraftKings cards because I thought it was going to be a decision because the wrestler I knew was going to be tough and probably just try to grind it out. It went exactly that way. Nothing to really take away. Ramos should have beat a guy like this and he actually should have finished him. So, if anything, it might be a little bit still. Ramos, once he gets put into that deeper water, really starts to get limited as far as his trajectory.
I kind of think he's going to always be stifled by a wrestler and never be able to show out. So that'll just be my little, if I have to put an asterisk by it, like a quick note, not great with wrestlers. That's what I should do, have my little cue cards. Things to look back about Ramos. Not good with wrestlers.
100%.
I was impressed actually more with Newsom at this. I think it was a short notice fight. No?
And up a weight class.
Yeah.
So he's a 125er. Yeah. Which they still have fights.
He doesn't seem like he could go up too much higher. He was a little guy.
He did seem short in there. He was giving up a lot of size to the taller Ramos in there. Then we started the main card where we had Alonzo Menafield coming in against Paul the Bear Jew Craig. This was a quick one in there. If you're following at Zoltanite, at Weekdeck Baby, you're going to end up getting those cards that were, dare I say, some of the top-notch freaking graphics out there. I really enjoyed our cards. I didn't see anybody really rival them. We were heavy in the paint with the purple. We were telling you guys, people, that we ended up liking. We had linchpins all over those fight cards. If you saw a crayon on Menafield, it was because I was going to go heavy in the paint. And boy, howdy, did it work. It was a fun one while it lasted 3 minutes and 19 seconds. Bear Jew was trying to get a takedown for all of his life in there. Ended up flopping to his back a few times. But Menafield, as we were predicting in the breakdown here, saying he comes from Fortis MMA, which is saying don't go to the ground at any cost. And Menafield really showed that, turning his back completely and running away. He was high-stepping out of there and just not even willing to entertain the Bear Jew on the ground. But the second he did it was because Menafield exploited an opening with an overhand right. This was some vicious ground and pound. This, as well as the Eric Anders fight, little late stoppages, would we say, for the refs in there? Anders was definitely late because he got 3 punches in there. That was
Anders was definitely late. This one, it could have been right there. It was right there. Maybe a punch, maybe 2, not as egregious as the Anders one, but I was actually impressed with Menafield's ring IQ in there for just the amount of fights that he's fought in the UFC. For a guy like Paul Craig to pretty much try to call him in at the whole step of the fight, and for Menafield not to buy in one time, always taking it back to the center of the octagon. You almost wish things of this fight Rocco Martin would have thought about later on. We'll talk about it, but the exact things that I felt like Menafield did just superbly throughout the fight, that a young guy with this amount of pressure, with his amount of, he seemed patient in there.
Agreed.
He picked his moment, and that impressed me.
Totally agreed in there. And again, he was, as you were saying, just the fight IQ. Really on point, really pacing himself well in there. But again, the Bear Jew is a fade for a lot of people in general.
I know.
So we can't get a mate ultra hyped in there. Somebody who really does have takedowns. Because Bear Jew was bending over at the waist and reaching. Where I said, I'm just like, oh, he's about to eat an uppercut. Like, that's gross. You don't do that against somebody.
We were actually saying that we were impressed with his takedowns better than last time because he actually had a full follow through with the chain wrestling where we were like, okay.
Right.
Okay.
He actually changed levels and shot. It was stuffed by Menafield, but Bear Jew did look like he was improving on his wrestling. Totally agreed. Then we move on to a quick
you're right,
one.
fade Paul Craig.
Definitely
fade. I don't even want to give anyone the idea.
Moving on to 155 pounds, we had Drew Dober coming in against Polo Reyes. This ended up being a quick one. We were telling you to stay away from Drew Dober being 9,500 on DraftKings, and shouldn't have. Drew Dober came in with a fire under his ass, moved forward, and didn't give Polo Reyes an inch. I mean, he showed that he was the better boxer in there, clean out. There was no wrestling. If anything, I believe Polo Reyes shot in there, and that was because he was getting picked apart by, the freight train of Drew Dober. If Dober fights like that in other fights, he's going to keep winning fights, but he has to keep on that just because he moves amazingly forward, but when he gets challenged,
he looked like the
freight train.
Yeah, and just stiff as nails, like
laser
tons
beam
of power, the ferociousness of his punches, and I mean, how long would that have been able to last? Is a question, but who can withstand that? Holy hell! It's almost like he came out with that Ngannou, the old school Ngannou, how it would just be like spark. It was just,
I agree.
Rapid fire.
It was amazing. Go back and watch Drew Dober's footwork in that, and he's doing a very awesome Muay Thai power style where he was throwing a jab into a right, and then instead of resetting on his planted foot, he was just throwing a left, which all of a sudden turned to his power hand, which shows the amount of dexterity that Drew Dober has in there as far as his striking.
Polo Reyes looked outclassed everywhere
in there. So Polo Reyes on a bit of a skid now, being finished multiple times. What do you think happens with Polo? Because I think it's 3 in a row now at 155 pounds. there's too many other guys that need shots in there. Is it time? Is it time?
Hasn't looked great. Is Drew Dober, though, we're just giving him all this credit that he could go down as one of these guys that's making his run right now. Maybe one more for Polo? Maybe?
If they want to give somebody else a shot off of his name.
He has a big enough name to maybe give a new kid off the Contender Series a shot at it.
I mean, if Polo Reyes goes to the fight of the year, he has to fight another debuting Korean fighter, and they're going to have a fight of the year contender in there. But what does that also say about the level of caliber that he's having fights of the years with debuters?
Are you saying it's time?
It might be time to get on out of here, Mr. Polo Reyes. It's just 34 years old. It's one tune. He's on one path right now, and it's just striking, and he's getting outstruck in there. So, to a humongous win for Lat B. We went to 155 pounds where there was a big favorite in Roosevelt Roberts coming in against Vince from Hell, Pushell. If you're following at Zoltanite, here, you're cashing big. Specifically, going to be trying to get this out for fans a little bit earlier if we can, especially with this other fight card coming right around the corner. Was telling you guys on the show, was trying to convince y'all that Pushell is a better wrestler, has more power, and boxer than Roosevelt Roberts. I liked what I saw from Roberts as far as his cardio, but you could see that if he doesn't get that submission or that top position on the ground, striking-wise, he can start to get beat. And even in the takedown in the wrestling, Vince Pushell did a really good job of habibing those legs, swiveling up, holding him on the fence, and really setting a blueprint of how to beat the type of Roberts fighter in there. Even told you guys on this puesta, if you wanted to go plus 330 at a decision win, you ended up getting 2 rounds for Vince Pushell, the second and third, but it was a decided second and third rounds. It wasn't even close. Roberts had nothing after that first round. What'd you end up taking away from this, other than the money in your pocket?
I had Vince Pushell on the show, so I'm glad I had him in places. I let the hype sway me to Roberts, and he really looked awful in there. He did not look good anywhere. That first round, he barely eked it out, whereas Pushell, I think, won his rounds handedly.
Yep.
It's why scoring needs to be bigger than 10-9. There needs to be regular 10-8 and then 10-7 and 10-6. Because there was some rounds in there where how can you give a 10-9 to Roberts for his first and a 10-9 to Vince Pushell for his second? That was a different quality of round handling.
I totally agree.
Different quality of round handling. Pushell was everything. He's going to be overlooked again. I hope he's an underdog again in his next fight.
He does best, honestly, when he's an underdog. Pushell's one of these guys that whenever he's a favorite, I don't know, but he says it himself even in interviews. He's just like, it takes so much pressure off of him. He's able to just go out there and no one expects as much, but he expects a lot from himself. So, again, the veteran fighter coming through. Again, we doing something right here at Lappy. We watch this tape for a reason. We pay attention. And if you're sticking along, in the long run, you're coming out on top.
Yeah, so make sure you're following everywhere because that's a new thing that'll be coming out where it'll be... because we were saying we might retire. Maybe we'll have a Leslie's.
The Drake curse of Lat B?
Yeah, that's retired. The Bandits bonus is retired because it never worked for us. We don't know if Leslie Smith, because she is signed with Bellator, if legalities she can come back, or if that feels weird, if there has to be a new one. I bet we could sit and chew it over of like somebody who's like an underdog that always seems to come through for us.
From Helmet is one of those type of fighters.
Yeah.
Just there. Well, we'll think about it.
We'll think about it. But this is something that is. Sometimes it might be a weird parlay you put out. Sometimes it might be a round that you choose. Sometimes it might be a fighter that you pick. So you guys have to be following because it's always going to be plus money. Always, 100% of the time. 100%. Sometimes with the Leslie Smith underdog pick, we know the line's going to change. It's really close, but we still pick it because it's like a person's getting overlooked. It's sometimes more emotional, but the puesta is always plus money.
And I will say to that caveat, if I don't see a plus money play, it might not happen. Yeah. So it can't be absolute guaranteed every week because I'm not going to expose myself to a bad play just because I don't see it. Going to force it. So
And
that's
we
how it
always
goes.
also have our cards that come out at the Instagram as well. But we stamp them with the things that we like. We have our ones that we play heavy, our linchpins. We have our, we put crowns or, whatever, some kind of emblem to let you know we're going heavy on this guy. Or this guy is going to be on most of my cards.
Right.
So.
Definitely pay attention on those because it's
Every detail matters.
Everything, even the circles around some of the guys that we have are bigger than the other ones, and that means kind of, backing off of that one. So be sure to keep it in your repertoire because it all does make sense. There is a linear path that we're
There's a
moving on
method to the madness.
Another method to the madness ended up being Rocco Martin against Damian Maia at 170 pounds. It will be relinquished. We got to let a lion dog lie. Leave it alone. It's time to leave it alone. Unfortunately for us, the Bandits bonus is not worked out, and it is just Rocco Martin ended up emptying his bank account, putting all of his money on himself to win as a plus 165 underdog. But Damian Maia came out at 42 years old and just showed how his grappling and just control ended up winning essentially all three of those rounds. Martin, I do think, gave a good showing of himself because a lot of people don't make it up. Ask Lyman Good once they get to the ground. So there was a lot of times that I saw the chain wrestling of Maia getting stifled, but finally it came through. And when they were on the fence, Damian Maia was really looking to set up the finishing submission multiple times on Rocco, but Rocco wouldn't bite on sticking his head in and just kind of kept his head back and really mimicked that American Top Team game plan, which was Masvidal and Colby Covington. You could really see how they used the fence, but where Rocco Martin couldn't capitalize was finally get his legs free enough to get back to his feet and get it in a neutral position. The ref even coming in late in the third round and standing a fight, was it in the second round? Standing it where Damian Maia, Martin didn't have anywhere to go, so unfortunately for us, didn't come through. Hoping it was one of two I got wrong all night.
Right. Rocco Martin did get he was also great. He got his back up to the cage every time. So Damian Maia couldn't threaten him heavily, and there may have been a few other times that maybe it should have been stood up. It was kind of questionable, even though we know they were trapped, but he wasn't doing any work. It was stagnant. Nothing was happening forward or backward. I like what I saw from Rocco because we know not everyone's as good as Damian Maia. The question is, what do you take from Damian Maia from this?
He's the number 12th guy, which he fell off of a cliff because he was number 4 like 2 days ago. All of a sudden, he's 12 and beating an unranked guy, so it doesn't do it. He's not moving forward
but
as far as his rank.
But he should have fallen off a cliff because he lost to everyone.
All of the top 3.
Yeah, but to me, it shouldn't be the guys you lose to as much as the losses in a row as well.
I don't know if I agree with that.
You can't just fall one place for one and then another one place with 2 losses in a row and other guys are on 7 win streaks and you're still above them. Something would have to give. If you were a professional football team unto yourself, you can't have 2 losses in a row and
back
still
of the
be
line.
Yeah, it kind of, and then 3 losses in a row. I think Damian Maia was on a 3 loss in a row thing.
Yeah, but it was to Woodley Usman Covington. Oh man.
So what?
I think he should be able to be top 10. Easily top 10 still, but he's 12th, so I think he stays at 12.
But who's ahead of him is the question.
True.
They all might be guys but you know what? I think Maia is kind of ahead of Robbie Lawler.
Thank you. And Robbie Lawler's in the top 10?
Yeah, that's crazy. The rankings are insane.
Absolutely insane in there.
But yeah, this is what I take from Damian Maia. I will probably pick him if he is fighting once every 8 months. I think his body at his age, if he has this, it's not because he took a ton of damage in this fight. He did take a good shot that he was in trouble at one point in the fight, but it's just, I don't think he's healing the same way. And when we saw him take those fight after fight after fight to essentially the guy with the exact same game plan, we saw him get slower in each one of those fights. I don't know if it was the guy's skill level one up as much as it was just, he's a crickety old, he needs a little oil in his joints.
Definitely. Somebody with good takedown defense is just somebody I'm going to be looking to bet against Damian Maia because that's the key. That's the absolute key to the fight
Rocco Martin seemed slow on his feet. He seemed super tentative. He didn't look like the best version of himself, even when they were in their stand-up.
I would be tentative as well because anything you do, it gives them an option, but you have to fight in there too.
Even the lack of IQ come the last 2 minutes of the fight when, hey, homie, you lost this fight. You need to get this. It's like some of the decisions that he makes seemed like it lacked ring IQ.
In the last 20 seconds, he should have backed up and not tried to strike on the ground with Maia and tried to finish him with a flying knee or something. But there was even a couple roll-throughs where Martin engaged Maia on the ground, and we were like, no, don't do it. And he rolled through.
On the stand-up, and then he went and tried to guillotine him.
Yeah.
And we were like, what?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? And then, yeah. So anyway, there were some questionable things about Rocco Martin, and I know there are like 170 guys, but it just seemed like he was slow. He was fighting slow or something. He didn't have as much pick-me-up as he normally does or as much speed in his hands. But I'm sure fighting off a boa constrictor for 4 minutes takes it out of you. So I still have him as an underdog.
I was about to say the same thing. If people overvalue this loss and think that Martin doesn't have anything to prove in there, he's going to beat a lot of other guys, especially as an underdog. On to the co-main event. We had 125 pounders coming in. Joseph Joe B. Benavidez coming in against Jussier Formiga. This was a round 2 TKO. The first one ended up finishing via 3 minutes. The second one went all into the 4 minutes and 47 seconds of the fight. Formiga looking better than he's ever looked. We said it here on the breakdown. Formiga has gotten better since he's been at American Top Team and definitely is somebody to watch out for, but he's just how Joe B is the Gustafsson. Formiga wasn't the Anthony Smith. He's more of the Andrei Arlovsky.
Yeah.
He's going to beat a lot of other guys in there, and he can even finish them on the ground, but there is just that level that he cannot get past, and Joe B's one of those guys that's always going to be able to beat Formiga. If Formiga sticks around, we like him here as an underdog. He does better as an underdog in there. And it was just really interesting. Ended up finding out that the first time they fought, Joseph Benavidez was a minus 700. And he ended up getting a round 1 TKO. Now it ended up being almost a pick'em. Joe being a slight favorite, but really showing a plus 300 type of a game plan in there. Finishing it where a lot of other guys couldn't throughout the night. Joe B really showing out. Would you end up taking away from this, dismantling of Formiga? Formiga went to the ground a couple times, but Joe B just ended up using that Jiu-Jitsu and ended up squirming his way to top position. Eventually head kick, finishing it for him.
I actually had Joey Benavidez as my linchpin, which surprised me because I've kind of been hating on Joey B for a little bit and just kind of got back on the bandwagon. He looked really great in his last fight. I don't think he's through, and I knew he was going to be a guy that laid out a lot of points. Formiga put him in some dangerous predicaments a few times. Formiga was a little better on his hands than I thought he was going to be, but I loved that cut, though, that thumb across the eyelid of Benavidez. I thought that was going to ruin the fight for Joey B. You could really tell it was affecting every other move that he was making. So I don't know how much that played into it, but I thought Joey B looked good everywhere, and he deserves that fight with Cejudo next. He got me a lot of points. I love
definitely. I like 108, maybe a little more.
Yeah, what do you think with Joey B and Cejudo? You think he goes too many places with that?
It's either that or it's Sergio Pettis.
He already did that, but he said
he lost that.
They're calling him 2-time Joe, like Joey 2 times, because everything he does, he has to do it twice. Like he had to beat. This is the second time he just beat Formiga. He had to fight. He went through like a bunch of his losses and all the people to get back Mighty Mouse. And so Cejudo, he'll have to fight him for the second time because he's already fought him once.
Joey B has so many nicknames and I love them. And I was thinking it was because of his hairstyle. You were calling him Joey 2 times. Hey, Joey 2 times.
Yeah.
Because he was looking all sorts of Italian.
The beefcake, Joey B.
Exactly. So Joe E.B. living his best life in there. Also getting performance bonus, an extra 50 grand. Who else got it in there? It was Eric Anders, your boy. One other person ended up showing up and getting a big one. I think he was. The main event we ended up telling you guys you're going to end up having to go on one side of this, and we all thought, well, everybody pretty much thought it was a big favorite in there. 1 minute and 11 seconds, we had the 265-pounder coming in and showcasing his boxing in there. Junior Dos Santos didn't shoot at all. He ended up throwing a body jab in there. They went for kick for a minute in there. Junior Dos Santos landing hard. Ngannou turning. Ooh, the Predator looking hurt for a split second in there. But, I mean, those hands on anybody. I feel like we called that to a T here on the show. We said it's probably going to be TKO round number 1 because Junior is just willing. He gave Tai Tuivasa the chance at times in there because he will wait in, eating a shot, expecting his chin to hold up because he has before, but not against Ngannou. Not against the African Predator. Not who's going to showcase.
Not against Ngannou that's training with an Usman. That is a dangerous combination between those two. Usman needs better hands. Ngannou needs better wrestling.
Definitely.
Those two men training together, dangerous for the rest of the UFC.
Usman being in his corner, taking a break off of the desk because Usman was on the panel in ESPN in a suit, so he ended up running downstairs.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I thought he had a twin.
So, Usman in there, in the corner, but
I have to say, Ngannou as well looked like the best version of himself.
Agreed.
Not just the power and doing what he did to Dos Santos, but he was the most patient version. He kept, instead of just flurrying, he kept getting back to the center of the octagon. He picked his moment for the first time and didn't just immediately, the second the first kick laid out, he just went forward.
Right.
Like, it was a very intelligent Ngannou.
Ngannou also throwing kicks himself. We've never really seen that from him.
That's how the fight started. I think it was two
kicks.
nasty kicks from Ngannou.
Right, which then I was like, oh, he needs to set him up and throw another one off, and he does. And we were like, uh-oh, this is a wrinkle in the game for Francis in there. So definitely like what we saw from the prospect, but is Junior Dos Santos, he's not worn. He just beat 3 guys in a row that were prospects. So he still has top echelon fighter. He's still going to beat 70%, 75% of the roster, but he's getting at that point where he's going to be a stepping stone, a gateway keeper to that top 5 at the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I think Dos Santos could beat Kane right
Agreed.
now.
Agreed.
There's a lot of the guys that he could definitely beat. And I think DC's never going to fight Francis Ngannou. There's no way that happens. I know it seems like an obvious, like, oh, his wrestling will handle him everywhere. Francis has great takedown defense. And I think Stipe is going to have a whole different time with Francis if they have to fight again. Francis, that loss is like, you know how we say sometimes the loss is the thing that makes you better? And
right.
We saw how mental the game can be with the Derek Lewis fight. I do think if Francis fought Derek Lewis again, he beats him hands down. But I do think Francis is so much more dangerous because of that loss to Stipe. I think everything so scary about him now.
He realized what he had to do, and it wasn't going and shoveling sand 2 weeks before
It's crazy.
a fight.
I would have Francis if him and Stipe fight again.
A lot of people were saying that last night.
What
that
about you?
I mean, it's those 2 top guys. It's the only fight for Francis. He's gotten a few wins in a row now. They've been devastating. How can you not in such a light division?
I even like Francis's footwork when he was getting back to the center of the octagon.
But I can also see this if it goes to Africa, where they give Francis a softball so that Cormier-Stipe can fight. Whoever wins off that gets Francis and whatever. But in that time, Francis headlines or is a co-main event under Usman because Usman's a champ. And Francis ends up getting a flash knockout against whoever it is. And it just, helps put a little money in his pocket while that time.
He's on, a 3-fight win streak?
I believe so, against high-level competitors. Kane, who else did he freaking murder as of late? Curtis Blades. So it was just Derek Lewis. Do you think he beats him again?
Yeah.
Because he lost the first one.
Yeah, I know. I just think that was his head case fight.
So how about Derek Lewis in Africa?
No, I'm not interested in that fight again. I don't want to see him. He deserves the championship. He should take some time off and fight the loser of
Stipe Cormier?
Uh-huh. But Cormier is not going to fight Francis, and I don't think he's going to fight. It's going to be such big money. It could end up being what about Cormier and Ngannou in Africa?
I don't think Cormier takes that fight because he's already tried to retire many times. I think he says
scary.
He
That's
says
too scary.
Hey, young blood, you go and take. You got the juice, young blood. That's what Cormier is saying. You got it, Francis.
What about John Jones, Francis, Africa?
All day, every day. No, I don't think they do it in Africa though. I think they try to give African fighters wins, and that's. No. That's a Vegas fight. That's a Vegas fight all day.
What do you think? Who wins?
That's a John Jones fight, baby. Give me a John Jones in that. Easy, John Jones. That's easy. That's a 2-1 favor, John Jones.
I don't know. I think that's a nasty little weird fight. That's it. Francis's power is next level. He's a scary dude.
You gotta hit him, and John Jones is hard to hit. People underestimate that.
I don't know. Well, a very similar style as Francis is just. Well, you know what? Francis is a lot more. Go crazy. The 2 minutes that John Jones is going to have in there versus Santos is going to be a scary 2 minutes for John Jones. That first 2 minutes, that Santos, that shot out of a cannon. Santos.
We're about to see that essentially at 205. That's a great point.
That's crazy.
It's a great point, and that's at 209 or 239. DraftKings lines already dropping. We got a star-studded holiday weekend coming up at Lat B. It's going to be all sorts of money. This is going to be where we gain a lot of fans. If you got friends out there, be sure to tell them it's going to be, again, money-making weekend. There's profile fights.
And even if you're not trying to make money, maybe we'll make you laugh.
Great point.
So, if you're following us at YouTube, you might get it early. It might behoove you to follow us at YouTube. So think about what you're doing. Thanks for listening once again, and we will talk to you soon.
Let me!